Good morning, boys and girls. It's chapter 14 today of Shooting the Moon. Where we left off last, Jamie was trying to convince her father, the colonel, to not force Private Hollister to go into Vietnam. And as you recall, Private Hollister's brother had died in the war. So the last thing that we saw was she left all those pictures that her brother had sent, left him on his table, on his desk, and so that was going to be the one thing he was going to look at when he woke up in the morning. All right, chapter 14. School started the Tuesday after Labor Day. If I'd had any big dreams about the eighth grade being some kind of promised land, they fell flat pretty quick. Eighth grade was just like seventh grade, but even more so. Math was good, English was boring, and in history we're studying the Greeks and Romans, just like we had in seventh grade and sixth grade too. The one bright spot of my day was newspaper, sixth period, Mrs. Ronco's room, second floor. Originally, my elective had been music appreciation, but I had met a new girl in first period pre algebra class, Alice Freeman, who complained that she couldn't be a staff photographer for the paper because she didn't know how to develop film. Why don't you learn? I'd asked her. I could teach you. I'm allergic to the chemicals, Alice told me. At least I assume I am. I'm allergic to almost everything else. Anyway, my mom won't let me get near a dark room, just in case. So we hatched a plan. She would take pictures, I would develop them. And wonders of wonder, Mrs. Ronco liked our plan just fine. The only catch was I'd have to write articles for the paper too. I can't write, I told Mrs. Ronco. Just ask every English teacher I've ever had. It takes practice like anything else, Miss Ronco insisted. Besides, the beauty of newspaper writing is that there's a formula to it. Just follow the rules and you will be fine. Well, rules I could do. So I wrote my first article, which was about a new teacher who had been teaching in India for the last 3 years, and it turned out okay. Alice took the pictures, and they turned out even better. Look at this. It's got my byline, I told Private Hollister, slapping down the paper on his desk. He was still at the rec center, still waiting to hear if he'd be shipped out to Vietnam. But so far, nobody in the unit had gone as far as the Dairy Queen in Harker Heights. The new guy from Fort Sill has yet to arrive to take over the rec center, so Private Hollister stayed put, mopping up and reading comic books. I didn't know you were a writer, he said after he finished the article. This is real good. I'm not a writer, I insisted. I couldn't write my own way out of a paper bag, but newspaper reporting's different. You just put down the who, the when, the how, the where, and the why, and you got it licked. There's nothing fancy to it. It's still real good. Private Hollister pulled a deck of cards out from his top drawer and waved them at me. What do you say? I don't know. I'd hate for you to get ahead of me now. Private Hollister pulled out a pad of paper of the drawer. Look, look, a whole new record keeping device. The notebook's retired. Nothing can ever change about how things ended this summer. One game, August 29th, 1969, the Friday before Labor Day. We'd started playing the minute I walked in, and we kept playing until 5 p.m., taking a 15-minute break for lunch. The day began with Private Hollister 2 games ahead of me, but by mid afternoon, we traded the lead with every hand. You got 'em right where you want 'em now. Show 'em where the door is, Sergeant Bird cheered from the pool table, where he was going through a stack of papers. He held one up to examine it more closely, and I realized he was looking at a photograph. Is that one of yours? I asked him. Ever since he started helping me in the darkroom, I'd want to see some of Sergeant Bird's photographs, but he never printed any. He only developed the film. I put down my cards and walked over to where he was. Can I see one? Nothing to see, really, Sergeant Bird said, but he handed me the picture all the same. It was a soldier sitting in front of a hooch, clearly somewhere in Vietnam. I shot 300 rolls of film over there, Sergeant Bird explained, and now it's all developed, so I thought I'd try printing a few of these. This one came out good, I told him, admiring how the print graininess gave it a sort of moody feel. Yeah, it's okay, but I don't know how many more I can do. How come? He let out a deep breath. Too many memories. I look at all my negatives and I ask myself, why do I want to remember all that? Maybe you don't have a choice. Exactly, my dear Watson. That's the very conclusion I've drawn myself. I'm between the proverbial rock and a hard place, memory wise. You giving up on the game, Jamie? Private Hollister called me. Because I'm still ahead, and that's fine by me. I sat back, and by 4:45, we were racing through the final hands. The person who reached 100 points won the game, the set, the match, the whole enchilada. My last hand was a beauty. I was dealt two pairs off the bat and a run of three spades, 3, 4, and 5. Every turn I picked up something I could use, discarded what I didn't need. But when I looked up at Private Hollister, I could tell the same thing was happening for him. Should I go ahead and knock? If I waited too long, he might get that last card that he needed. Might rid himself of all the deadwood and get gin. I knocked. It was close, very close. I spread out my cards on the desk. I had one unmatched card. Private Hollister laid out his hands. 3 pairs, the Jack and Queen of Hearts, and 2 pieces of deadwood. Cards that didn't match anything are deadwood. I'd won by 1 card on the last day of summer. Man, oh man, Private Hollister said, shaking his head. You whooped me. He wrote the points down in the notebook, and then at the very bottom of all our scores, he signed his name and handed the notebook to me and to do the same. Now you keep this, he said, when I tried to hand it back to him, just so you remember all the good times we had playing. That's about the most fun I've ever had playing cards. It ain't fun unless you're playing with somebody who knows what they're doing. I could have cried. I didn't, but I could have. Now I eyed the deck of cards, wondering if I would spoil things to ever play gin rummy with Private Hollister again. Maybe I should leave the memory of my amazing victory in pristine condition, unmuddied by any later losses. Oh, what the heck, I told him. I took a seat across from Private Hollister. Deal him, I ordered. For a while, I checked in at the rec center 2 or 3 times a week, sometimes hanging around to play cards, other times just stopping in to wave, and then heading on to somewhere else. School was running me ragged. Mrs. Ronco kept assigning me newspaper articles, and it seemed like I was doing everybody's darkroom work for them. Alice Freeman said she bet our newspaper would win some sort of prize for photography. I did such a great job making the pictures look good. At first, every time I stopped by the rec center, my heart beat a couple beats faster right before I walked in. Would Private Hollister still be there? The colonel had never given me a direct yes or no about helping him, and I knew I shouldn't ask. It went against protocol to ask about a soldier's orders, and I'd done it once, and I could not do it again. But after a few weeks, I relaxed. It seemed clear that Private Hollister wasn't going anywhere. I relaxed so much, sometimes I went for a week without checking on him. Alice had started teaching me to take pictures using her camera. She thought it was crazy that I knew so much about developing film and printing film, and not a thing in the world about photography, which she informed me was the art of writing with light. We'd stay after school and take pictures of the football team, the lockers, the janitorial staff, all kinds of different stuff, just to see how interesting we could make it look. One afternoon, when I got home from school, there was a roll of film from TJ waiting for me. Any letter? I asked my mom, who was writing out a grocery list on the kitchen table. I don't know if he wrote you one. He sent a short one to Daddy and me. Not much news. He says he wants to learn how to fly a helicopter. Of course, there was no letter in the envelope he sent me, just the film. I decided to go ahead and develop it that afternoon. And if I didn't have time to print it, I could take the negatives to school with me the next day and work in the darkroom there. Don't ask me to play cards, I called out as I walked into the rec center. I don't have the time. I've got a roll of film to develop and a history test to study for. It's all about Greek columns, if you can believe it, like anybody needs to know that stuff. I'm sorry. I'm not I'm not sure I follow you. The soldier sitting at Private Hollister's desk was not Private Hollister. He didn't bear the least resemblance to Private Hollister. He was a heavy set, bifocaled, and had a 5 o'clock shadow. I wasn't sure if Private Hollister had actually shaved more than once a week. Where's Private Hollister? I asked, realizing it had been over a week since I'd seen him, maybe two. He's supposed to be working here. Reassigned. Private Grenier. Is there something I can help you with? Reassigned where? First signal. Here? At Fort Hood? Not sure. He might have been with one of the units that shipped out to the 3rd Corps Tactical Zone last week. Vietnam? Saigon or thereabouts. Place called the Parrot's Beak. Buddy of mine at Fort Sill was there. Said it was pretty grim, I'll tell you. Panic rocked me like a hurricane wind. I'd stopped paying attention, and now Private Hollister was gone. I ran from the rec center and looked around wildly, as though maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe there was still time to find him, but there was nothing to see. Just blank-faced buildings that lined Battalion Avenue. Typical Army architecture. Nothing there to give you a plan for what to do next. Nothing to give you one single answer. There was only one place I could go for answers, and that was the Chief of Staff's office. If I wanted to know what happened to Private Hollister, I'd have to ask the Colonel. And we will leave it there for chapter 15. Let me give you a little rundown here. How many more chapters do we got here? Let's see. I think we have, oh boy, we have like 2 more chapters. So hopefully we get some good news. All right. Have a good one, boys and girls.